Thank you, Mr. Chair. Maraming salamat po, Mr. Chair. At salamat ulit sa hearing na to. Mr. Chair, I just want to put the discussion in perspective. Kasi po, katulad po nung binanggit sa resolution, yung policy on addressing the issue of COVID-19 at ano yung mga problema sa Department of Health, no, sa mga policies na implement niya. Siguro po, Mr. Chair, kailangan mailagay natin sa isip natin na sa ngayon, talagang napakahirap nung legislation that we want to do, although we want that immediately. Pero nandito rin po tayo sa isang sitwasyon na kailangan nating i-address yung problema ng ating bansa. Yung problema ng mga nahahawa sa COVID at yung mga namamatay. When we started the hearing, we were at 13,000 deaths. Ngayon po, 22,000 na. After only about 1 month. We started the end of almost April, 2 months. 22,000 na po ang namamatay. So, noong una po, ang aking tinitingnan dito yung PISMID, talaga pong hindi ko nagustuhan yung kanilang mga recommendations. Kasi kung titingnan nyo yung recommendations nila, talagang lahat bawal. Vitamin C, ang zinc, vitamin D, and this is actually the policy of the Department of Health. Is this not correct, Secretary Duque po?
I am not sure na pinagbabawal yan, Mr. Chairman. Kasi for example, zinc, that has been long recognized as very quite helpful in prevention of upper respiratory tract infection. So vitamin C has also been recognized as helping in improving resistance, no? So I'm not sure about where that is coming from. That it is not allowed by PISMID.
Yes, maraming salamat, Secretary Duque, because that clarifies the issue. Kasi nga po nung una, ako po ay hindi naniniwala at hindi ako sumusunod sa protocol na gusto ng PISMID. Pero it would seem, pagdating po sa remdesivir at ivermectin, ito po yung sinusunod ng Department of Health. If you go to the guidelines, living guidelines ng PISMID, yan po ang kanilang sinasabi. Importante po yung statement nyo, Secretary Duque, because kayo po yung policy. Marami po kayong tinatanggap na iba't ibang rekomendasyon, but eventually, the buck stops with the Department of Health. In fact, kahit na po kay Pangulo, ang sinusundan niya, no, during the question and answer hour, tinatanong niya yung FDA. So batay dun sa sinabi nyo, and I hope that DOH will check this, yung po ang nakalagay. They are recommending against vitamin C, recommending against zinc, recommending against yung binanggit ni DS Atienza, yung sukob. In fact, yung sinabi ng DOST, magandang virgin coconut oil, they're also recommending against. So okay. So yan po, nakalagay po dyan. So Secretary Duque, doon po sa mga, kayo po ba mag-agree? Because I'm sure in the IATF and Department of Health, na ito pong kauna-unahang pagkakataon dito sa Ivermectin that doctors are independently conducting and submitting their trials. Do you agree on this?
I'm not aware that they are doing this and have registered with the appropriate agency, which is supposed to issue the guidelines on the conduct of trials. Ang alam ko po, ang DOST ang may mandato niyan.
Okay,
so then,
pero ito
may
po,
be allowed, but with the imprimatur of the appropriate agency. Kasi may proseso pong dinadaanan yan eh. Maybe
Opo.
si DG Montoya can give you a more definitive answer to that, Mr. Chairman.
Mr. Chairman, kaya ko po na-raise to as a matter of fact lang po that for the first time, sa lahat po tinitingnan ko yung mga drugs, ang mga doktor mismo are making their own initiative, conducting their own trials, and submitting these trials. Of course, to the FLCCC, ito po yung independent group sa US, independent group sa yung BIRD, which they are also submitting to their respective authorities. Are you aware of this, Mr. Chair?
Not to that extent, Your Honor, Mr. Chairman. Maybe the DOST can give us guidance on this or enlighten us on this. DG Montoya, if Mr. Chairman, can you please recognize DG Montoya?
Yes, DDG Montoya.
I understand, Mr. Chair,
Yes,
Secretary de la
Honorable Chair.
Peña already mentioned about many trials happening. But yes, go ahead, Director Montoya, go ahead.
Yes, Honorable Chair, Your Honor. Just like to clarify the question. The question is regards to the need for doing clinical trials. Is that correct?
No, Mr. Chair, my question is, kasi po, dun sa aking nakikita, and binention naman to ni DS Marcoleta and all the other congressmen, first time po nakita na isang gamot, iba't ibang doktor sa buong mundo ang nagsusumite ng mga trials. Independent. And as of now, 56 trials have already been conducted by 469 scientists of 18,000 patients. So it's just a matter of fact na tinatanong ko, are we aware that there are already trials being conducted by many doctors independently?
Yes po, we are aware of that na marami po mga trials na natapos na at kasalukuyang ongoing pa po. We are monitoring those as well po.
Thank you, Director Montoya. And are we aware that for Pfizer vaccine that we gave emergency use authorization, there was only one clinical trial? Isa lang po ang
Kung ang
Pfizer.
tinatanong niyo po ay yung Pfizer vaccine po,
Opo.
masasabi ko lang po yan as far as we are concerned kasi kami po involved lang doon sa vaccine expert panel. Marami po pag-aaral na ipinakita po, hindi lang po isa kasi marami pong mga phases po yung trial na isinagawa ng Pfizer po bago sila nakarating sa phase 3. At tinignan po lahat yan ng vaccine expert panel.
Tama po kayo. Sa phase 3 trial po, isa lang po ang ginawa nila, and I have here the New England Journal of Medicine where it was published. Secretary Duque may respond because this is from a medical point of view.
Yes, I believe I confirm what DG Montoya has just said, no? That the vaccine expert panel is the one tasked to review all the dossiers, all the clinical trial data. And they also review peer-reviewed journals, no, and research articles on the same, no. So yan, tama kayo, may Lancet, yan kasama yan sa evaluation. Meron kasing task group ang DOST. They had the task group on selection and evaluation. So kasama po lahat yan, Your Honor, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Now, Mr. Chair, pumasok na yung pag-uusap doon sa trial and value judgment. From a policy point of view, lahat po ng gumamit na bansa ng Ivermectin, kaya po critical dito, Secretary Duque, that there should be a public policy. Kasi po, katulad kami, nung nag-distribute sa Matandang Balara, ang katotohanan po, ang CIDG nandun, they were observing. I'm not sure if FDA was there, but I'm sure they were there. They were observing. Pagkatapos biglang nagkaroon kayo ng pag-file sa PRC to investigate the doctors. Bakit yung mismong trial na ginagawa, kung epektibo to, hindi yun ang tinitingnan natin? Now, going back to my point, tinignan nyo na ba ang experiences ng Mexico, Peru, Slovakia, Czech Republic, Bolivia, Panama, Nicaragua, Egypt, at ngayon po India? Nakita na po ba natin kung nung ginamit nila on a mass distribution, bumagsak ang nagkasakit at namatay sa Ivermectin?
Maybe Director Montoya, Mr. Chairman, be recognized once again. Thank you.
Mr. Chair, I'd just like to clarify kasi po, question of policy to This is from a policy point of view, from the Congress point of view, nakita namin itong mga bansan to bumagsak nung gumamit ng mass distribution. So I'm asking the Department of Health or the health authorities, IATF, nakita ba natin o tiningnan ba natin at inobserbahan, pinag-aralan yung pagbagsak ng pagkahawa at pagkamatay nung nagkaroon ng mass distribution ng Ivermectin?
Kasi ang world data, makikita natin even in the Philippines with very negligible use of Ivermectin. dahil kukonti pa lang ang nakagamit, the recovery rate right now is already 94%. So even without ivermectin, it is clear. Even in the world data, makikita nyo, 98% yata ang recovery rate globally. So parang mahirap naman po na sasabihin natin it's because of ivermectin. So look at our historical data since our pandemic in the Philippines started. Consistently, until pagkatapos ng nag-spike tayo ng April, May, the recovery rate has gone back to more than 90%, and which was the same figure after our surge in July, August. Noong September, October, November, you can look at the data, mataas ang recovery rate natin. So parang mahirapan naman po tayo sabihin, parang sa dengue rin yan no? Dengue's death rate, case fatality rate is 0.3%, 0.3 to 0.5%. Now some people before would just claim X product cost the recovery of X number of dengue patients, no? X product saved the lives of X number of patients. But if you look at the data, the epidemiologic data, makikita mo that the recovery rate sa dengue is 99.7%. So anything that you give may be loosely attributed to certain drugs or certain medicines. We're not discounting, no? We're not saying walang epektong maganda. But what I'm saying is the data, look at the data, the recovery rate globally is more than 95% eh. So sa atin is about 97%, 94%, and then our serious and critical cases, the percentage will be about roughly 2%, no? And then mild would be about 1.5%. For all the active cases, makikita natin, recovery rate ang taas-taas.
Secretary Duque, totoo po yan. If you look at 22,000 people with 100 million population, malit yung 22,000 na namatay. Pero sinasabi po natin, hindi dapat namatay yung mga taong yun. Now, if we look at the data, again, adverse events, pag kinumpara po natin ang remdesivir, kinumpara natin ang vaccines, there are more adverse events on these particular drugs on COVID-19 than ivermectin. So parang sinasabi po, now I'm looking at the policy statements that you're saying now, mukha po talaga hindi tayo papayag sa ivermectin at mukha hindi natin papayagan yung mass distribution. Yan po talaga nakikita kong posisyon ng Department of Health. Because on the one hand, yung PISMID nagsabi, ito pwede, sabi nila hindi pwede vitamin C, yung zinc, pero sabi nyo hindi, kailangan yan. Pero pagdating dito naman sa ivermectin, sinusundan natin sila based on the data, which if we look at the entirety of the data, ivermectin will still be the safest. Siya pa rin po ang pinakamura at pinakanakikita naming epektibo na gamot. Now, I will go back to my next point. Sinabi po ninyo, malakas ang recovery. Magkano na po ang nagastos natin sa PhilHealth on COVID?
I think the PhilHealth representative is on board.
Yes, Mr. Eli Santos.
Yes, thank you, Mr. Chairman. Can we direct SVP Eli Santos to respond?
Yes, SVP Santos, you may respond.
Well, good afternoon, Mr. Chair. Good afternoon, members of the committee. At the present moment, Mr. Chair, I do not have that specific data. May I be given a few moments, Mr. Chair, to obtain it and get back
Okay, we
to you,
will
Mr.
go
Chair?
back to you after 10 minutes.
Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Yes. Sa ngayon po, Mr. Chair, the last discussion we had, ang sinasabi nila is 15 billion na po ang nagastos natin on the PhilHealth funds. Nagrereklamo na po yung mga frontliners natin na nahirapan yung mga ospital, nakapira na po sa labas. Then nagkaroon po tayo ng lockdown. Ang ekonomiya po natin pinakamababa na, bagsak sa Southeast Asian nations. We are at negative 4.2% relative to the other countries. So again, as a matter of policy, hindi lang po to simpleng yung nagabot ba to o nagawa ba to, but as a matter of policy, balancing the risk and the benefit. Babalik po ako dun sa aking katanungan, bakit masyadong ginigipit ang ivermectin at ang mga doktor na nagtutulak nito. Because Mr. Chair, Secretary Duque, I'm sorry for asking this. I have good information that you even called the PRC to investigate the doctors, if I'm not mistaken. I hope that could be clarified.
Again, that was responded to. Mr. Chairman, I would like to ask that you recognize Yusek Berhere on the circumstances surrounding this report to PRC on the doctors prescribing Ivermectin.
Before the reply, Mr. Chairman, kaklaro ko lang ho Noong una ho, hinuli yung mga nagpo-produce ng Ivermectin, compounding. Later on, sinabi ng FDA, pwede na yan. And doctors can do off-label. Kami po ni Doc DS Marcoleta, nagkaroon po ng medical mission with the 4 doctors sa Matandang Balara. And in fact, we were monitored there and I know that we were monitored during that time. Pagkatapos po noon, bigla pong nagkaroon ng complaint coming from DOH. Naglabas ng statement ang Philippine Medical Association and Philippine Colleges of Physicians na bawal mag-prescribe ng Ivermectin. So you can see, talagang ginigipit po yung Ivermectin. So yes, Yusek Bergeri, you may respond. Thank you.
Yes, good afternoon po, Congressman Defensor. With regard to the letter that we have sent to the Professional Regulatory Commission, this was in consideration of the reports that were submitted to the Department of Health that we needed to act on. And based from the reports, it was mentioned in the report that there were doctors who have written prescriptions for Ivermectin during this pantry, that the prescriptions were incorrect. It was written, these were written on notepads, and the other incorrect information or proper filling out of prescription form. So that was what we have written to the Professional Regulatory Commission for further investigation. That was all that we did, and that was all that we have relayed to the Professional Regulatory Commission, Mr. Chair and Congressman Defensor.
Thank you po, Mr. Chair. For the record lang po, Yusek Vergere, do you have the copy furnished of the report?
Yes, sir.
Would we know kung sino po yung nag-report?
Sandali lang po. We received it from 2 separate media institutions that was forwarded to us, sir.
Okay, so there was a reporting. Hindi ho yan ni-report sa inyo. Ni-report yan sa media, motu proprio, kayo nag-file sa DOH, sa PRC. So yan po yung nangyari. So again, I go back to my point. Talaga pong nagiginigipit yung mga doktor. Now, papasok po sa Philippine Medical Association. Mr. Eli Santos, are you ready there?
Mr. Chair, I'm still looking for the
Okay.
data, Mr. Chair.
Okay, different question. Alam ko, yung data ninyo, 15 billion yan initially. Siguro tumaas na yung ginastos ninyo. Now, I'm pointing out na 15 billion na nagastos sa PhilHealth for COVID because yung dinidismiss natin na Ivermectin, na ganito nangyari, hindi mo naman klaro ang data, yung epekto, yan po ang epekto niyan. 15 billion immediately from the PhilHealth. Hindi pa ho natin alam kung magkano pa yung ginastos. Ngayon, tanong ko Mr. Eli Santos, bakit ang Philippine Medical Association binibigyan nyo ng right na mag-accredit ng doktor para makakuha ng PhilHealth benefits? Who gave you that right and what is the legal basis of that?
Mr. Chair, that is found under the Universal Healthcare and the National Health Insurance Law, Mr. Chair.
There is none about the Philippine Medical Association.
With respect, Mr. Chair, to accrediting healthcare professionals, Mr. Chair.
O nga po, pero bakit po kailangan sila magkaroon ng PMA accreditation bago nyo sila bigyan ng accreditation?
You're correct, Mr. Chair.
Okay, so dapat tanggalin nyo yan, Mr. Santos, dahil dun po sa investigation natin, 5,000 healthcare workers ang may kaso. Wala akong nakitang inimbestigahan ng Philippine Medical Association. So you have to take out that requirement because yung requirement po na yan ang ginagamit ng Philippine Medical Association para gipitin yung mga doktor na mag-prescribe ng Ivermectin. Pag hindi kayo sumunod sa protocol nila, kung ano yung gusto nila, yun ang ginagawa ng Philippine Medical Association. Ipapatanggal yung PhilHealth accreditation nyo. So Mr. Eli Santos, do you have a commitment na tatanggalin nyo yung PMA as part of the accreditation process?
Mr. Chair, I will commit to bring this matter, Mr. Chair, to the PCO and to the board, Mr. Chair, so that they will recommend that this requirement will be removed, Mr. Chair. Thank you, Mr.
Thank
Chair.
you for that. Thank you for that. Pangalawa, Secretary Duque, I'll go back to Remdesivir. Sinabi ho ng WHO, hindi na ho yan pwede. Sabi ho ng WHO, last year pa ho yan. Ngayon ho, ang sinasabi, meron silang special permit. Alam nyo, Secretary Duque, lahat po ng ospital, pag may sakit ka ng COVID, pumasok ka, Remdesivir kagad ang isasaksak sa'yo. So why is it that we're doing that? Pagdating sa Ivermectin, sabi ng WHO, hindi pa ho sinabing hindi pwede, clinical trial lang, hinihinto natin. Pagdating po sa Remdesivir, na sinasabing hindi talaga pwede, pilit pa ho natin pinapagamit sa mga mamamayan natin and the cost is very high for them. Yung 1,000 sa India, binibenta po dito 10,000 to 15,000 sa mga kababayan natin.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Ang alam ko po, ang Remdesivir is one of the investigational drugs which has been granted the Compassionate Special Permit by FDA. Kahapon, galing ako sa Southern Philippines Medical Center, nag-inspect ako ng COVID situation sa mga ospital, pati yung Davao Regional Medical Center. Tinanong ko sa kanila, totoo ba yung mga Remdesivir ninyo nagkakahalagang umaabot 10 hanggang 15,000 piso? Sabi nila, hindi sir. Ang aming bili sa Remdesivir is 1,500 pesos per vial. So, yun ang latest na natanggap ko na pricing on the ground. Pero wala rin akong makita naman na ang WHO may kautusan o may advisory na sinasabing walang kwenta o hindi pwedeng gamitin ang Remdesivir. So meron naman po tayong mga Health Technology Assessment Council na nilikha sa ilalim ng Universal Healthcare law, at sila po kasama ang living clinical practice guidelines nagbigay ng positive recommendation. Kanya pwede kong pa-recognize kay Ginoong Chair si Dr. Melissa Guerrero to give us more details on this particular issue. So in fact, ang pharmaceutical division na nakatanggap ng 65 na reklamo on overpricing of Remdesivir. At 35 dito ay inendorso na sa DTI, sa kanilang Legal Enforcement Bureau. So maybe, Mr. Chair, can we ask Dr. Guerrero to give...
Dr. Guerrero, you're recognized. Please respond.
Yes po, Mr. Chair and Secretary Duque, sinagot na po
Dr. Guerrero, before
Yes,
you
sir.
reply, para
Opo.
isang sakutan na lang. Andito po sa akin ang WHO study na ginawa. And very clear ho dito, on the Remdesivir, we suggest against administering Remdesivir in addition to standard care. So, okay, please reply po dito.
Okay po. Ngayon po ay hindi pa talaga final yung analysis po ng trials for Remdesivir, at sinabi po ni Dr. Isa Alejandria, who heads the Solidarity Trial for the Philippines.
Dr. Guerrero, saan
Yes
nyo
po.
nakuha hindi pa final?
Yun po,
Binasa ko.
there is no strong recommendation pa po, pero sinasabi po ng Solidarity Trial na matatapos na po yung analysis. So doon po natin malalaman talaga kung ano na po yung kanilang final analysis po.
No, Dr. Guerrero, niloloko niyo po yung taong bayan. Ang nakalagay po sa WHO study, ang dali ho. Ngayon, nandito yung computer, I can just upload it. We are recommending against, conditional recommendation against. In fact, nilahad pa doon ng WHO na hindi nila nakikita yung benepisyo, nakikita nilang mahal to, at ito mismo nangyari sa ating mga kababayan. So, saan ang gagaling yung hindi pa tapos? May WHO statement po kayo?
Okay po. So ito po yung binigay na update po ni Dr. Isa Alejandria na anytime now po ay maglalabas po ang WHO ng final analysis po for the solidarity trial.
Hindi, Doktora, sorry, Yusek Guerrero. Sorry po, Mr. Chair. Niloloko niyo po yung taong bayan. You have been saying that, Doktora Guerrero, but you have not given me any document. Wala po kayong pinapakita na hindi sinabi ng WHO na hindi pa tapos. Sinabi ng WHO tapos na. They are recommending against. Ang nakalagay sa Ivermectin, we are recommending clinical trials. Use it for clinical trials. Si Dr. Alejandria, pismid yan eh. Yun ang kaya sinasabi ni Secretary Duque na ayaw nila ng vitamin C, ayaw nila ng zinc. O sabi ni Secretary Duque ngayon, di ba? Na hindi, mali naman yun. Dapat payagan yung mga yun at dapat yun. So there is no, I'm sorry Mr. Chair, unless Yusek Guerrero, you have a statement from the WHO. Kasi ang sabi niyo noong una, WHO sundan natin. O ngayon, sinasabi ko naman sa inyo, ito yung sinabi ng WHO, pero ginagamit nyo pa rin ang remdesivir sa lahat halos ng ospital.
Sama po ang WHO sa pinapakinggan natin, pero meron din po tayong living CPG na nag-a-advise po sa Department of Health. At doon nga po sa latest na analysis po nila, although wala nga pong strong evidence on the mortality, kinonsider po kasi nila yung hospitalization days. So meron pong benepisyo in terms of pagbabawas po ng hospitalization days, which is an important outcome for the clinicians. So
Sa madaling salita, Dr. Guerrero, pag gusto niyo sundan ng WHO, susundan ninyo. Pag ayaw niyong sundan, hindi niyo susundan. Kasi pagdating sa remdesivir, ayaw niyong sundan. So pinapagamit niyo sa tambayan. Pagdating sa Ivermectin, sinusundan ninyo. Clinical trial lang.
I-value po kasi the advice of our experts din po locally. So
I know that you value, but do not argue with me na sasabihin ninyo may WHO kayo dahil mali ho kayo. Wala kayong WHO. Wala ho kayong WHO. The WHO has been saying hindi yan dapat gamitin ng taong bayan. Napakamahal niyan. And I'm sorry to say, magpa-file kami ng case about it. Ngayon, papasok ako sa isa pang tanong. Face shield. Ayaw na lang ang gumagamit niyan sa buong ASEAN, sa buong Asia. Nasa living recommendations din ba yan, yung face shield?
We can review po the evidence, pero last year po, kasama po yung face shield dun sa ni-recommend sa IATF po.
O, kita nyo, again, Mr. Chair, pati sa WHO, hindi na ho sinasabi ang face shield. Ang dami na ho nahuli, may doktor pang nahuli. Nagbabike, gusto nila naka-face shield. Yung pagka-prone niya sa pagka-aksidente, kinulong po yung doktor na yon. At yung kanyang benefit at risk as regards COVID-19. And I'm sure no, sa mga healthcare workers, I'm still okay with that, yung nagpapaswab test. Pero yung face shield na po yan, dapat nating tanggalin. Dr. Guerrero, so can you please, will you review that?
Yes, sir. We can review the evidence.
So, Mr. Chair, in summary, tingnan niyo po nangyayari. Ang tingin ko po, and not from a scientific point of view, but from a country experience, Ivermectin should be distributed. Napakamura po niyan. Grabe na ang epekto sa ating ekonomiya, grabe na ang epekto sa ating healthcare system. I'm just talking of PhilHealth, 15 billion na ho off the last check, and this was months ago. Hindi ko na ho alam magkano nagagastos natin. Ang epekto po sa ekonomiya natin, napakalaki. Tayo na po ang pinakababa, negative 4.3%. Nandito na po ang India variant. At nadami na naman po ang magkakasakit dahil tinanggal na natin yung lockdown. In the statement, letter given by the Philippine Chamber of Commerce, yung iba't iba pong business groups who signed this letter, and if I may read po, sinasabi na ho nila, ito, si Mr. Ortiz, Employers Eco, Philippine Chamber of Commerce Industry, si Mr. Yulo of Chamber of Commerce of the Philippine Islands, Federation of Philippine Industries, Philippine Bar Association, Federation of Philippine Industries, Mr. Alberto Lina, si Atty. Rico Domingo sa Philippine Bar Association, former Senator Lina sa Sagot Kitabayan, Cory Quirino, Volunteers Against Crime, Atty. Nage, Maritime Law Association, and so on and so forth. Sinasabi na po nila, bigyan natin ng chance ang Ivermectin because this is not only a health issue, but an economic issue. So that's number one. Number two, yung remdesivir po, grabe pagpapahirap sa bayan. Sinabi na o dati, hindi na pwede ng WHO, patuloy natin ginagawa yung remdesivir. I'm happy that Secretary Duterte made a check on this at bumaba na Pero previous to that, we have records na yung 1,000 o 500 pesos binili sa India, binibenta dito 15,000, 20,000 pesos. And number 3, yung face shield do. Para sa may hirap, napakakalaho natin, mura lang yan. Pero napakahirap po pag i-require natin yan. Sa lahat, tayo na lang ang bansa na nagre-require niyan. So Mr. Chair, ngayon na nilift na yung protocol na naman at makikita natin na naman yung pagkakaroon ng surge. Now, I believe that this is about time na yung DOH with the IATF, kung taka-policy, mura lang naman po ito eh. Oh, wag po nilang gipitin yung Ivermectin. Alam niyo, ginawa namin sa Old Balarayan. From 138 cases, we brought it down to 39. Pero nung ginawa, nagkaroon na naman ng ayuda. Ng 6,000 people magkakatabi, magkakahalo-halo. Of the 600 check, 89 na naman ang positive. So ito po yung nagiging problema natin. But the Ivermectin itself, from what we saw, yung pagbibigay namin, dahan-dahan nababagsak yung problema ng pagkahawa at pagkamatay. So Mr. Chair, ito po yung tatlong policy that I reiterate should be looked into. Hindi na ho natin kailangan ng batas, kailangan natin aksyon ng kagad to. And lastly, yung living guidelines ng PISMID, which I don't think is helping our people. Maraming salamat, Mr. Chair.
Thank you, Congressman Mike. Deputy Speaker Atienza, will you interpolate?
Yes, I'm here waiting for my turn, Mr. Chairman.
Yes, sir. You may proceed.
Yes, I'd like to take the opportunity, Mr. Chairman, of clarifying certain issues which are bothering our people. We heard Congressman Mike Defensor very, very articulately explaining what he hears from our people. I also reflect what I hear from the people. At this point in time, I welcome the presence of Secretary Duque, who is a good friend of mine, and officials of the FDA, although I'm quite disappointed that the chief of the FDA is again absent, Mr. Chairman. I was hoping he'd be around today para po naman maliwanagan na natin lahat ito mga bumabalot na issue na ang pagsususpecha ng tao ay lumalala. Pinag-uusapan na po ang inadequacy and maybe even incompetence of certain leaders of our medical sector and the Department of Health in particular, which hurts me because, as I said, Secretary Duque is a friend of mine, and I am automatically defending him in public fora, knowing his integrity. But he cannot keep on citing integrity when it comes to real issues. At this point in time, we have overwhelming evidences on the practicality of the use of Ivermectin. I hope Secretary Duque is also affected in the same manner that I am. So I'd like to ask him one simple question. Secretary, my good friend, have you even bothered to talk to doctors who belong to the Concerned Doctors and Citizens Organization? Have you ever bothered to call for them and talk to them and listen to them? Because they talk a lot of sense. And if the Secretary of Health would listen, I'm sure a lot of these problems that we are discussing may be addressed effectively. Pinatawag na po ba ninyo, Secretary Duque, si Dr. Agbayani, si Dr. Landrito, at yung mga concerned doctors and citizens who are disagreeing with your public policies and your pronouncement on the raging problem of the COVID-19. Did you even bother to talk to these noted doctors? I'd like to clarify that, and I'd like to ask my good friend.
Yeah, Mr. Chairman, the DOH did have a meeting with them that was bridged by ARTA, DG Dalhika. So there was a meeting, but at that time I was not around. I wasn't available, and it was Yusek Berhere who represented the DOH in that meeting. Maybe Yusek Berhere can tell us more about what transpired in the meeting and the agreements.
Well, I would welcome the pronouncements of Yusek Berhere in this matter, because all of this will be on record in our deliberation. Ano po ba ang napag-usapan ninyo?
Yusek Verere.
Yes, Mr. Chair. Good afternoon po, Congressman Atienza. Actually, it was facilitated by DG Bellica. So, if I may request po, si DG Bellica can give more accurate regarding answers to the proceedings during that time of the meeting, sir.
Mr. Chairman, I would not welcome that suggestion of the USEC. She's passing the buck. And that's exactly what I'm trying to pinpoint now. We've been passing the buck. We've been playing basketball on the emergency situation, and that is unacceptable. Kayo, as USEC, dahil kayo ang nag-report kay Secretary Duque, ano po ba ang inyong impression? Nagsisinungaling po ba si Dr. Bayani? Wala po bang basihan yung kanilang masidhing damdamin na humanap ng paraan para ma-address natin ang problema ng mahihirap sa COVID-19? Ano po ba impression ninyo? Don't pass me on to Director Bellica, because I'm one of the admirers of this young man who's trying his best to improve the system. Kayo na po ang sumagot doon sa aking mga tanong.
Yes, sir. Actually, that meeting was really called on by the ARTA, DG, and his team for us to clarify processes with regard to the regulatory processes when it comes to drugs or these new technologies. So FDA was also there. Sila Dr. Landrito, Dr. Agbayani, and the others were also there. So during that meeting, DG Bellica facilitated the discussion so that the doctors can also be clarified. The first question was, what were the causes of delay in the approval for a clearance or authority to be used for this Ivermectin that had been proposed. The second was clarification about the compounding in pharmacies. And then I don't know, I cannot remember, sir, the other discussions, but basically the discussions were focused mostly on regulatory processes for this specific drug.
So what you're saying, Dr. Yusek, is that if not for the initiative of ARTA, you would not even have bothered to talk to people who are insisting and staking their professional integrity on the issue of the Ivermectin. You would not have done it except for ARTA. Yun po ang sinasabi nyo. Kaya lang kayo nagpulong dahil nanawagan at tumawag ng pulong ang ARTA. Yun po ba ang sinabi niyo?
That's the fact, sir, that the DG Bellica through ARTA called for the meeting. But if ever we would have been open naman po to sit down and discuss with the doctors.
So would you give us a direct answer now? Ano po naging impression ninyo nung narinig ninyo si Dr. Bayani and the doctors who are pushing and staking their professional integrity on the issue of Ivermectin? Ano po naging impression ninyo?
Yes, sir. So it was not really about the integrity and the credentials of the specific doctors. It was really the evidence that we had during that time and up to now based from the recommendations coming from our experts. So yun po yung aming pinangahawakan.
Excuse me, Mr. Chairman, I am not willing to accept the statement of our experts. Your experts are supposed to be our experts, the Philippines experts. Sino po ba yung mga yan?
Yes, sir. This was based on the recommendations coming from the Living CPG group. And this has been the one established by the Department of Health, which is comprised of different medical societies, the UPNIH, and the Institute of Clinical Epidemiology, so that we can base our decisions from their recommendations.
Those are big words, Madam Yusek. I am identifying Agbayani, Landrito, to name a few. Please identify who are your experts.
This is a big group, sir, so I can...
Sino yung sinasabi niyong ekspertong pinakikinggan din ninyo?
Yes, sir. We have the Living CPG is comprised of the Philippine Society for microbiology and infectious diseases. We have representatives like Dr. Isa Alejandria. We also have UPNIH and the Institute for Clinical Epidemiology, where we have Dr. Inday Dans. We also have other experts from other groups. We have Dr. Eileen Espina, and the others, I cannot recall the names, sir, but they are coming from different medical
Ano
societies.
po naging resulta ng meeting na yon? If there is any result, if there is any effect whatsoever on you and the whole establishment.
Yes, sir. There were agreements that had been made, and there were instructions coming from DG Belica for us to be able to facilitate the process of these regulatory mechanisms that we were trying to implement for this specific drug, sir.
Would you mention some of the actions that the DOH took after your meeting?
Yes, sir. Actually, it's more of the FDA side because of these regulatory processes for issuing out the CPR because at that time, meron pong isang manufacturer which already have submitted their application for the CPR for Ivermectin.
Earlier, coming from you, you said that you were reacting to media reports and you caused action on the basis of media reports to try and question and penalize the doctors who were promoting ivermectin. Are you saying that you only react on media reports and not your own personal, professional initiative and knowledge of the issues? That's a very sad commentary on your office, Madam Secretary, Madam Yusef.
No, sir. When we receive these reports, we just have to do action because every time that we receive reports, we do action. But before we do our action, we have to study it also. And as being doctors, and we know the existing laws, we saw that there was cause for these reports regarding the appropriateness and the correctness of writing out those prescription forms. And even the societies concerned about this, like the the Pharmacy Association of the Philippines, were also giving us this kind of complaints. So what we did was to relay it to the Professional Regulatory Commission. We did not accuse anybody of anything. We just relayed to the PRC that if they can do further investigation on this matter.
You know, Madam Yusek, public office, especially in times of emergency, require quick reaction and action coming from those mandated by law to do the action. But so far, you're talking about months of exchanges and months of forced meetings, but you have not said anything about taking the initiative to find out ivermectin, is it effective or not? You know, non-practitioners like us, I also am guilty because I give ivermectin to a dying poor family. And you're telling me that that could even be against the law. I could charge you of really not performing your task. You are not following your mandate, and the rest of the DOH and FDA. As I was listening to Attorney Filipina, Mr. Chairman, I'd like to address Dr. Duque. Obviously, Attorney Filipina, my good friend, is a tired bureaucrat. Kanina yung sinabi niya, puro problema, pero wala po siyang aksyon para ma-simplify ang movement ng mga papeles sa tanggapan niya. So this is not the kind of performance we are expecting from public officials now entrusted with handling the solutions on the problem of the COVID-19. Yusek Vergere reacts to media reports and she claims she met with the CDC. I have an immediate reaction. There was no meeting held between the CDC and them. So where is your statement coming from, Yusek Vergere? Mabuti makinig kayo, Secretary, because you are the one being pinpointed by the public and your people don't seem to be reflecting your commitment. At this point in time, I would even recommend, siguro papagpahingahin mo na muna si Attorney Filipina. Kapag pagod na yata siya. Hindi na niya makayanang sumunod sa atas ng panahon. The requirements of the time is that we have to have quick action and reaction. Complaint is number one of the complaints that we get is that masyadong mabagal ang proseso ng kanyang tanggapan. Ang sinasabi niya, puro problema kanina, wala siyang sinabing solusyon. When we are confronted by this kind of an emergency, we need more dedicated public officials. Hindi pwede yung you sit on your imagined mandate, imagined power, imagined authority. You lose that authority if you don't perform it, if you don't respond properly to the challenges of the emergency. Kaya at this point in time, ang tanong ko po remains, have you called for Dr. Landrito, who is making a lot of public pronouncements about the benefits of Ivermectin? Have you called for Dr. Iggy Agbayani, who is very admirable in insisting on his findings that Ivermectin has very good benefits at a very affordable price? Talaga bang tayo ba'y naiipit na lamang sa mamahaling gamot? Are we committed to all of these expensive medicines forever and ever while our people are dying of inutility of some people in government? I'm sorry to say that. I have been with government for the past 50 years, local and national offices. Pag may problema, binibigyan natin ng solusyon. At one point in time, in the city of Manila, we had to simplify all the processes because the delays are the cause of corruption. Dr. Duque, my good friend, alam mo naman yan, pag may mga delay, teka, yan ang pinanggagalingan ng magkita tayo sa labas pagkatapos itong pulong. Ha? At pipilitin ko yung special committee, aprobahan yung application. Why do we have to get things complicated when we are facing a common enemy? Why do we need to get confused messaging? The other day that we met, a memo was read that you were ordering the stoppage of the use of vitamin C, zinc, and so many other affordable preventive supplements. You and Yusek Vergere, I remember very clearly, you were discouraging the practice of suub. To remind my good friend Mike Defensor, hindi ko sinabing sukub. Sukub, yun yung kasal. Pero yung suub, yun yung inhalation.
Yes, sir.
Talaga po bang talaga po bang masama ang dulot nun? Mali pala mga Pilipino. Dahil ako'y bata pa ako, nagsusuub na ako eh. Hanggang ngayon, nagsusuub ako gabi-gabi. Yusek Vergere. So I do not believe what you're saying when you say not to try it because it's dangerous. No, it's not dangerous. You're stupid if you put your boiling water in your face. But if you're careful, it helps you breathe properly and more easily at no cost to you and your family. And yung vitamin C with zinc is very, very affordable. So why would the Secretary Duque discourage that? Yung pong announcement ninyo ng isang meeting natin eh. That bothered me because sabi ko, teka muna, masyado na yata lumalala ito. We need to act in Congress to put everybody in order. So I go back to Yusek Vergere. Have you met with Dr. Landrito and Dr. Agbayani about the issues involved in our discussion? It is of national interest that you are interested. These are not media reports. This is reality. Have you met with them?
No, sir, but we had exchanges of communication through letters because they were writing the Department of Health regarding their issues, and we responded to them through an official letter as well.
Kaya nga, okay, you exchange letters. I hope they're not love letters. Letters. Ano ho naging resulta ng mga letters na yun? Meron po ba?
The last time that we have responded to them, they did not answer back anymore, Mr. Chair and Congressman Atienza.
No, but what I'm pointing out, Mr. Chairman, is on the issue of ivermectin. Has there been any movement in your outlook, in your attitude over this issue? Based on your exchange of letters, based on your meeting forced upon you by ARTA, kung hindi pa tumawag ng meeting ang ARTA, hindi rin kayo tatawag. Hindi ba kayo nababahala na mayroong nagsasabing, mabuti ito, na-discover namin to. That doesn't affect you. It affects us. It convinces us. But you don't seem to be interested in the issue. You're relying on the slow process of exchanging letters, on the meetings that I suspect you're making up, because sabi ng CDC sa akin ngayon, I just got a text message, there has never been a meeting between them and you, or much less Secretary Duque. So at this point in time, you are still dribbling the ball. Doctora, Yusek,
Yes, sir.
let me remind you, and let me appeal to you. Today is a period of emergency. We cannot hear a lot of blah, blah, blah. We cannot hear a lot of pronouncements. There are certain issues that should be addressed. Congressman Mike Defensor pointed out the face shield. Hindi ba kayo nababahala na meron tayong requirement na tayo na lang ang gumagamit sa buong mundo? And you're shooting down the very idea of dispensing with it by saying, hindi, kailangan pa rin. Kailangan pa rin gumastos, sinabi ko. Yung mga bansang hindi na gumagamit, gumagaling. Tayong gumagamit, dumadami na mamatay. Mas marami na mamatay ngayon, di po ba sa figures ninyo? I make it a point. I listen to your pronouncements every day. Mas marami na mamatay ngayon, di ba nyo naisip? Baka yung face shield na pumapatay Ang matatanda, pag naka-face shield at naka-face mask pa, ay baka yun, hindi na makahinga ngayon, hindi na makapagreklamo dahil ginagawa niyong batas yung inyong guni-guni sa kapakanan ng taong bayan. I'm now listening to you.
Yes, sir. I mentioned a while ago that the meeting was called on by the ARTA DG Belica. We did not call for a meeting with the concerned doctors. We had an exchange of communication letters with them. And thirdly, what we do since the start of this issue on ivermectin, when it was first proposed, we convened already the living CPG because we're part of the panel that sits there to discuss these different studies as evidence for DOH to use. So there is this process that we have wherein the evidences that we use for policy decisions are based on the studies that are being done by this living CPG group, which is a consensus panel. So mula po nung nag-umpisa po itong issue na to, hindi naman po na umupo lang kami, ginagawa po namin yung pag-aaral at pakikipag-usap sa mga eksperto para po makapagbigay din kami ng appropriate na recommendation. At hanggang sa ngayon naman po, pinag-aaralan pa rin. Kaya nga po living CPG ang tawag, dahil anytime that there would be new evidence, we can easily evaluate it and then recommend kung kinakailangan at sinabi lang pwede, ilalagay na po natin yan sa rekomendasyon.
But you have to admit, at this point in time, Yusek, you have not bothered to even call doctors who are pushing for the opening up of the country to a very affordable drug like Ivermectin. Hindi kayo tumawag na meeting up to this point in time. Ang sinasabi nyo, tinawag kayo sa pulong ng ARTA. Thanks to Director Belica. Kung hindi pala siya tumawag ng pulong, hindi kayo interesado. Yun ang sinasabi ko. Secretary Duque, there seems to be a lack of interest on the part of those you are trusting and entrusting big responsibilities for the lives of people are in their hands. Kung sila ay naghihintay lamang, tawagin sila ng ARTA. Kung hindi pala kayo tatawagin ng ARTA, hindi nyo pupulungin yung mga taong meron suggestion para po naman sa kapakanan ng Pilipino.
Mr. Chairman, I would like to reassure the good Representative Lito Atienza that I will reach out to them as soon as this meeting is concluded, we will sit down with the officers of the CDC Philippines, Mr.
Please.
Chairman. Thank you.
I knew that would be your reaction because you are a good man. Kilala ko po kayo, nagkasama na tayo sa pribado at sa gobyerno, mabuting tao kayo. Pero ang akin pong ikinatatakot ngayon, masyadong marami na po maruruming tao sa Department of Health. FDA in particular, that's why I'm missing Director Domingo, because I would have wanted to ask him some pointed question. Where there are serious red tapes present, delays in procedures, that's where corruption comes in. And you cannot deny that corruption is the number one problem of the nation, and we should all be holding hands and helping one another. Try and solve that. Remove corruption from the processes of drug approval. The FDA, if you talk to anybody, any drug producer, anyone from the outside, Doc, I hope you conduct your own private investigation. It's common talk. Pag hindi kayo naglagay, hindi tatakbo ang papeles nyo. Now that we know the huge backlog, and I hear the lady in charge, how's hopeless na siya. Hindi raw masasolve talaga, talagang sobra-sobra ang kanilang trabaho. Eh, maybe mag-resign na kayo kung kayo nahihirapan na sa trabaho nyo. Give other Filipinos a chance to handle the problem. Nung ako po'y nasa national government, merong malaking problema yung getting an environmental clearance certificate. Nasabi ni Presidente Ramos, ang one of the main causes of investment disincentive is the EEC. Agad, narinig ko lang yung pronouncement. Agad, I went into action. And President Arroyo immediately reacted saying, Dito, you better attend to this because this is the number one complaint of investors. And within a couple of weeks, we were able to streamline, simplify. Any big investor can get his environmental clearance automatically. Itong naririnig ko rin sa ating masipag na, siguro matagal na po siya sa tanggapan na yan, eh parang pagod na siya. Kaya I hope you give Attorney Pilipinas a serious study. Baka pagod na siya.
DS Atienza, excuse me. You're already 15 minutes above the...
Muna, I'm asking for 2 minutes extension. I hope you don't deny me this, Mr. Chairman. Otherwise...
2 minutes. 2 minutes po.
And I'd like Yusek Bergere to bring a bearer of good news for a change. Lahat na lang, tinalabas siya sa television, puro bawal, huwag niyo gagawin to. Magsabi naman kayo, anong dapat namin gawin? Bigyan niyo kami ng inspirasyon. Takot na po ang taong bayan. Makita lang po ang mukha ni Yusek Bergere. Bad news na naman to. I'm telling you exactly what I'm hearing from the outside. You should take a look at how you're handling your mandate so that together we will find a solution. Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I was able to express what people would have wanted expressed in this meeting because something solid and an improvement in the system should come out of these hearings that your committee is conducting. Thank you.